Hey guys, Jen Marr here, business coach, life force strategist, and I am here to talk to you about a really powerful experience that I had recently. I was asked to speak and participate in the Women Who Boss Up event in Las Vegas. It was pretty awesome. I was in a room full of women for 3 days, which is a I wouldn't say a first, but close to a first for me. I took until I was probably in my 40s before I really started to have close relationships with women. And so right before I was leaving, I finally heard from my former business partner. You know, this is the person who I had shared joys and struggles of building our company for over 10 years. And in June of 2022, he launched an ambush against me, making wild accusations about criminal activity on my part and all kinds of craziness. And I had chosen not to retaliate, to just move on. I needed to put all of my energy into building my business and healing myself because a ton of past trauma came out of this. A lot of shame and a lot of, low self-worth and all kinds of things. And so I chose not to retaliate and just moved on, moved forward, even though it cost me a great amount of money in my investment. My income just came to a screeching halt. My time, energy, and effort just kind of out the window. But to be honest with you, I was relieved that day because I had already wanted to move on. It was already becoming a toxic relationship. I lost respect for him and we just were no longer a match. And so it turned out to be a blessing, but it was obviously a very abrupt way for that to come to an end. And I'm pretty amazed that I was pretty prepared for what happened that day. All these things that I talk about, I really got to walk the talk, right? Although nothing could genuinely had prepared me for that loss of my primary source of income, the investment, and most importantly, my reputation. This was the hardest part for me, having so many people speak about me in such a negative manner. He went around and basically told everybody, what he feels transpired. And it was his version of the story. Whether or not he truly believes that, I don't even want to get into that, but I can just tell you that my side of the story is so far from his side of the story. And obviously there was no criminal activity or any malice whatsoever. Anything I ever did was for that company, and I put my heart and soul into it. But I chose not to fall into despair, but rather use it as an opportunity for growth, use it as an opportunity to put these practices into play. And there's a huge difference between just surviving adversity and using it as a path to self-actualization. So I was now free to pursue my dreams that had been pushed aside for so long. And this newfound freedom that also came along with it was very difficult emotions, like I said. So the fear and the shame from the past trauma threatened to hold me back, as these malicious rumors were spreading throughout the industry. So instead of succumbing onto that sort of negative pressure, I drew strength from my self-care practices, such as my meditation, my yoga, my journaling, and channeling resilience into that beast mode. So that despite all my doubts, insecurities, and fears that were lingering and just haunting me daily, growth found its way through it all. And I just moved on. So, but finally, a couple of weeks ago, my last week in the Dominican Republic, I got an email. So no charges, he threatened charges and big lawsuits. None of that ever came to fruition. But I finally got an email where he filed a formal complaint against me to the New York State Department of State. And now I'm faced with no other option but to present my side of the story. And to be honest, I never really wanted to go there because it would have been this horrific battle. There was like, you know, nearly 100 agents with that company that I had mostly brought over and recruited and trained and had relationships with, that I didn't want to get them dragged in. People were already dragged in. I was told, he told them that they couldn't speak to me. It was witness tampering. I believe he made threats to them that they would lose their license if they were involved, and just craziness. So I, again, just decided to move on. But now that there was an actual formal complaint, I needed to respond. I needed to defend myself. And so I took my time. It took about a week or maybe almost 2 weeks to get my thoughts together. And then I submitted a very lengthy response just a few hours before I had to head off to Las Vegas for this speaking engagement. And so now I'm in Vegas and I fly in and I have to be, I'm staying about a half an hour away from the event. I have to be at the event at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't get into my the place where I'm staying till like midnight. So I had about 5 hours sleep, spent a whole entire day doing a photo shoot with a ton of women. It was a lot of fun, but it took a lot of me mustering up the mental strength to be able to do that. So actually that wasn't day one. Yes, that was day one. And then day two, and by the end of day one, that entire day, I had to leave early. There was like a reception and I did not stay for the reception. I knew I needed to go get some sleep. I knew I needed to do some meditation. I knew I needed to do some yoga. I really wasn't in tune with the fact that this was this old trauma rearing its old ugly head. Old trauma rearing its ugly head through this recent trauma. So day two, I'm leading a panel. I am able to get through that. And I did actually a pretty good job with that. I didn't allow, you know, imposter syndrome or any of those things to creep in. I just handled it as well as I could. At the end of day two, went to a dinner, and it took a lot of effort for me to show up at that dinner. I was excited. I got to sit next to one of my industry giants who means a ton to me, but I was in a really weird space. And she asked me a question about my past, and I answered her honestly. And if you know anything about my past, which most people don't, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. And I just felt like I just needed to freaking answer with the truth. This is who I am. And so I gave the truth, and I felt judged. You know, I felt really just like she didn't, I don't know. I guess I just felt judged, but I think a lot of this was in my head. And, you know, I know my outsides do not match my past, but my outsides are very much a culmination of who I am on the inside. And I'm not going to live the rest of my life pretending to be somebody I'm not. And it's not that I've ever been phony or pretended to be somebody I wasn't. I just never really fully let people into who I am. And you know what? I finally understand what no fucks given mean. I mean, I really always had a problem with this expression, but I'm going to blurt out my truth. And this is where I got to that day. So when she asked the question, I just came out with it. But now I was feeling judged, and I wasn't feeling quite this confident in that moment. And I had to speak the next day. So I left the dinner semi early. I really didn't feel connected and a part of it at that event. A lot of that is due to my own thing. I didn't even get super dressed up, which is not normal for me. Because it was a gala and a lot of people there were, you know, dressed to the nine, and I was dressed as if I would go out to dinner, just not really fitting in. And so now, the morning of day three, I decided I needed to face my fears, and I needed to speak out loud about my story on this recent trauma. I needed to uncover this courage within myself to be true to who I am. Now, I don't know if speaking in front of all of these women was the right place to do this, but I just didn't care. I needed to get it off my chest. It's been since June where I've just kept quiet. And so, overcoming my nerves, I embraced the challenge. I bravely stepped on the stage. I wore a daring sort of red coral dress. I had my hair and my makeup done, and I was completely overwhelmed by emotion because all this trauma had reared its ugly head. I had tears streaming down my eyes, and I was full of raw honesty and went into my story. And I was hoping to be heard through each vulnerable word that was spoken. And within one bold breath, I summoned the courage to face a room full of women with my truth. Though I'm sure not everybody heard me or could even comprehend what I was saying, because I think I was a little all over the place. But I was speaking out loud to the universe. I finally released all that had been burdened and I've been holding onto my shoulders, and released it from me and onto this room full of women. And let me tell you something, these women have become my sisters since then, right? Amidst all that unfamiliarity and foreignness of the people in this audience, we were bonded in that moment. I was acknowledged by those around me, and it was an incredible, comforting environment as my emotions were running so high. Yeah, when I finished, I was completely overwhelmed. I think I managed to get somewhat of what my original message was. And believe it or not, the topic I was speaking on was anti-fragility. And so I was depleted when I finished. But yet I had to stay in that room and I had to support all my fellow sisters who were speaking as well that day. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful process. Now, I did have to leave a little bit early. I did my famous Irish goodbye and left without saying goodbye to everybody. And I returned back to my home where I was staying in Las Vegas to reconcile my past and present pain. And through the tears and the reflection, I literally cried for about 24 hours. And I was pretty excited because my brother was coming to visit me. And that was something to look forward to, because I don't know that I would have gotten out of bed for a few days. And I discovered in that moment that healing requires addressing past childhood and past adulthood trauma, and doing it with love and courage and compassion, and quite frankly, no fucks given. And it is time for me to reconnect with myself emotionally, creating peace where the deep wounds have left feelings of loneliness, betrayal, abandonment. And they're just so deep that when somebody hurts me, I scorch the earth, and it's time to put that behind. It's distracting. My journey of building a successful enterprise while staying true to myself has been enlightening, empowering. I'm so grateful to that conference and that room full of women who helped me understand who I am. I don't need to wonder if somebody accepts me or doesn't accept me for my past. And the more you think you hear your haters, the more you need to understand that you are judging yourself. And so I know I wasn't judged that day, or if I was judged that day, that's her issue, not mine. I have to start accepting and loving myself for who I am today, tomorrow, and in my past. I've gained a lot more clarity on my core values and my convictions, and this sort of acceptance that's going to carry me through as I continue to grow in my business and my life. Now, I don't know what will happen with this situation with my partner, but I can tell you this, regardless of what happens, I know who I am. I know my heart. I know what I've done wrong and what I haven't done wrong. And I know that I am a good human being. And I know that I did everything that I thought I was supposed to be doing in the moments that I was doing it, and always, always putting other people first. And now it's time for me to start to take care of myself. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was a difficult one for me, I'm not going to lie. But if I'm not sharing my truth, and it's so funny because I realized that I did another blog and podcast called Something About My Truth. So obviously it's been in my mind and on my heart for a while. And I will tell you that from here on in, you will know Jennifer Marr as its entirety. I will live in my wholeness and I will accept my flaws and my failures as they are part of who I am. And who I am as a good human being and somebody who is truly, truly committed to helping as many people around me as possible. If there's anything I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out and have a great day.